Madam Chair, you do have a quorum.
All right, then I'll open the meeting of the Service Committee of the Comet. And we'll move to adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the
So
agenda?
moved.
Mr. Burgess moved. A second?
Second.
Mr. Ratio, and all in favor, please say aye. I think we can do this on a voice vote. Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Hearing none, we'll adopt the agenda and move on to a report from Midlands Transit Riders Association. Is Mr. Gossett with us, or anyone from Midlands Riders Transit Association?
Madam Chair, I do not see Mr. Gossett nor Mr. Durst. They were on the invite, but I do not see them.
Okay, well, and if they join us later, we can come back to that later, but for now, we'll move on to number 4 on our agenda is adoption of the minutes from March 12. Do I hear a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Mr. Burgess moves. And a second
Second.
from Mr. Ratio. Any discussion? Then all in favor, probably need to do a roll call, Pam.
Okay. Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Tracio?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
Ms. Fleeton? Ms. Moon?
Yes,
The motion passed.
all right. So we have adopted the minutes from March 12. And then our next item is matters referred from the Board of Directors. And this really is just the information item that we get that shows the chart of the things that we have pending. I'm gonna look back at what we have, but hold just a minute. All right, so we have the development of the long range plan, and of course our next step on that will be at the board meeting when that's on the agenda for the next board meeting. So we don't have that to discuss that today. And we have the streetscape plan for Hardin Street and Taylor. Do we have an update on that?
Madam Chair, we
That
don't
one's
at
closed.
this time.
That's completed. I'm sorry, I misread that. That one's closed. And the key personnel procedures and the action plan on data analytics are on our agenda today. So we're on target with those things, and we'll discuss those 2 items as they appear on our agenda. All right, which takes us, does anyone have questions or comments about the things referred from the board? Motions from the board? Okay, well, that's information, and we'll move to the ridership report. And Erica, you gonna walk us through our current ridership report?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Got a little echo, but let's see if that goes away. Okay,
Yes.
Yes.
You
Do you
still
still
have-
have it? Okay, can you hear me now? All right. So as far as the ridership report, I'll just go down, give you an overall perspective of where we are to date. We reported 184,337 riders. That's about 34,933 passengers different from what we had last year this time. I think we are definitely moving in the right direction. Weekday ridership from January 2020 to February 2020, that comparison, we're around a 18,000 passenger drop. And so we're pretty consistent with 2019 and 2018 and past year's data, because the data it fluctuates pretty much the same in everything across the board as far as our expectation goes. But this may be due, of course, to weather changes, it's tax season, things of that nature. So all of that is taken into account. From January 2021 to February 2021 comparison, we are about 9,000 passengers different. So we still seeing a deficit there, but again, not as significant. That's pretty much a 8,000 passenger difference. And so many words, this is a positive growth and as we return to our version of normalcy. Now, speaking of normalcy, right now, our scale of where we are, weekday, we overall, negative, we're down 16% for weekday ridership, Saturday, 31%, and Sunday, we're actually only down 1%. So that's very, very positive. I think the current level of service that we are operating on right now looks really promising for Sunday level of service. Outside of that, positives right now, A3L is the St. Andrews Harveston area, Route 75 Park Lane and Decker, the Forest Drive corridor, Route 20 USC West Campus route. They're all looking really, really good right now. Saturday service is a little bit more dynamic, but right now you're seeing a lot of movement here with Route 101, 301, 401, 501, 701, 801. The disclaimer here will be Route 501 is down 36%. And this is our Sand Hills area. So we are definitely keeping a close eye on that. Route 75 in Park Lane and Decker is doing really well. And Route 32 North Main and Hardscrabble is doing pretty well. Outside of that, just going over Sunday level of service, we have several routes that are performing well here. 101, 801, 45, Route 75, which is around the Fort Jackson area, 32, 83L, and 92X. The only true negative here on the Sunday level of service, as expected, probably be around DART service. We're down 71%, but that's only 22% from last month reporting. So we're still in a good spot. From our last meeting, the board mentioned Two Notch, taking a closer look at Two Notch Road. We did do that. We reviewed all the stop locations, and we are, again, working with SCDOT to make sure there's a lot of pedestrian access along that corridor. So in hopes, we are hoping that within the next month or so, we can engage more conversation to install pedestrian crosswalks. Outside of that, that concludes my report.
Okay, does anyone have questions for Eric? Comments? Okay, thanks very much. And let's move to item 7. 7A, the passenger amenities program. We have someone from Davis and Floyd to update us on that.
Yes, Zane McGee with Davis and Floyd.
Hi, Zane.
So in the past month, we have received one encroachment permit from SCDOT for a shelter site. And we also, AOS has installed 22 shelters and 3 benches in the past month. The shelter delivery that came in early March. All those have been installed fully at this point. And we also provided a master inventory list of the amenities that are present at each site.
Okay, and could you speak to the items that are listed as unresolved issues, the Fort Jackson stop and the pending items of the inventory?
Yeah, so the unresolved issues, Fort Jackson stop, I actually saw an email earlier today that the Army was requesting or more just an item about the cost of the site, but it sounds like that one is moving forward and should be completed soon. It's just been, the Army has some extra things that they're going through on their end to get that one finished. And the shelter and bench inventory is needed for 10 sites. I believe, I guess Eric, you can correct me if needed, but I believe that an order has been placed or is about to be placed for those.
Yes, that is correct. We're in the process of placing that order now. We have another shipment that's getting ready to arrive within another week or two. I received that email shortly before this call.
So the inventory we're talking about is waiting for the actual amenities to arrive, is that? Is that what's pending?
It basically means, yeah, that we have some sites that are approved. Everything's good to go. We're just waiting on the actual physical structures to show up.
Okay. Okay. All right. Do any of you have questions for Mr. McGee? Okay, hearing none, we'll accept that report as information, and thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we'll move to 7B, the service delivery update since February, and Mr. Bell and Eric, you're gonna share in reporting that?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair. This is Maurice Bell, and looking forward to being able to report some good status since February 8th. As you well know, we were short operators during the course of the 8th start, and since then, we've been able to have 12 individuals graduate class during the month of March, and we're on pace to graduate an additional 8 going into May at this point. We're on pace of being able to exceed our requirement in order to provide service, and things are on the upswing as we continue.
Great.
Mr.
And-
Bell, Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Burgess.
I have a question for Mr. Bell.
Okay.
Are you running a survey on Route 12 today?
Not that I'm aware of, sir, but I can double check with our assistant manager.
And the reason I'm saying that, I was at the corner of Germany Street and Waits Road, and a young lady got off the bus with a clipboard and a safety jacket and was talking with one of the riders that got off. She got back on the bus. So I followed the bus onto the car and asked the driver, were they running some type of survey? He said no. So I said, what is the young lady that's riding with you doing? And he completely ignored that question and drove on off. But the complaint I have is I haven't met a courteous driver yet, unless the driver knew I was a member of the board. So I'm thinking some of that public courtesy should be incorporated into these training of new drivers. Now, I've met drivers at the transit center, have ridden the bus, and until they find out who I was, then the courtesy became. Other than that, I had one of your drivers to tell me one time she thought I was one of the homeless she was riding. But this was before you came to Columbia. But that's a problem in my neighborhood. These drivers are very discourteous. They act like all they have to do is ride the bus around the route rather than picking up passengers. So that's something we need to look into real fast.
Definitely, sir. We'll make sure. I know our team is on this conference call from Joy McKelvey, our assistant manager, as well as our training and safety manager, Mr. Reese Pearl. So I know they've heard your concerns here, and we'll definitely address that accordingly and be able to have something to come back to you with for the next meeting.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. And I'm just wondering, people can ride a bus with a clipboard, but that is a mystery. It does look like somebody surveying, and with you said a safety vest on, is that, but not any kind of uniform. Is that what you're saying?
No,
Mr.
she
Burgess?
didn't. She was dressed in civilian clothes, but had on the red safety vest. When I looked in the window, she wasn't sitting like a passenger. That's what made me wondering what type of survey she was doing, you know?
Right. Well, I guess we'll just
That
keep
was
our
bus
eyes open. If
12.
it's not something that we know about anything officially, it could be someone just working on a feature story. So, but thanks for calling that to our attention.
Yes, but the driver should be aware of that. And he said, no, we're not doing a survey. And the lady is still on the bus riding with him and talking to a passenger. That's what,
Yeah.
kind of got me, but
Thank
it
you.
was at 10:59 in the colony is when I spoke with the driver.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. One of the questions I have is, I know we're just at the point of making the transition back to fares. So do you have anything to report on that with our drivers with the new barriers in place?
Excuse
Well,
me, Ms. Moody.
we started.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pam.
Yeah, excuse me, Eric wanted to address, Mr. Burgess's concern.
Oh,
I
I'm
just
sorry,
wanted to
missed
know,
that.
how long ago was this incident? I know that, sometime late last year, we had someone doing, surveys of routes for our APC data. And I'm not sure if this coincides with, some of your sentiments, but if you can provide just a timeline of when this occurred.
No, this happened this morning at 10:59.
Okay.
Excuse me, I hate to interject.
No, please do.
That young lady was doing National Transit Database passenger sampling. It's a federal requirement.
Thanks for clearing that up, Mr. McKelvey. All right.
In other
All right.
words, the driver lied, right?
Well, he may not have been aware of.
Yeah.
No,
what
he was
she
aware. He was aware because they were communicating. This was almost like a joyride. So he was aware.
All right, Mr. McKelvey, you have anything else? I see your hand up
No, I have the hand up so that I could interject
early
that.
on.
Yeah, I'll look into the attitudes.
Okay, thank you. So then my question was whether there's anything to report as we, as the drivers are operating now with the barriers in place, the protective barriers in place, and we've just barely started back on fares, haven't we? That just started, what, yesterday?
Yeah, we started a little bit of a campaign last week to get operators prepared for the collecting of fares. As of today, there hasn't been any major issues with fare collections. We have had a couple of operators ask questions in regards to passes, things of that nature, but we haven't experienced any challenges at this point. Unless there's something new that's happened this morning, I think Mr. McKelvey could address if it has. Do we have anything as of today?
Nothing at all.
Not hearing anything. Wow, that'll be nice if it goes that smoothly to resume the fares. That will be good.
We had a few challenges, but nothing that derailed service.
People just weren't aware that the fares had been restarted.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members? All right. All right, so we'll move on to 7C, which is an update on the plan that we were given at our last meeting, Mr. Bell, Mr. Hubbard, Tanisha, on getting all of our data straight with our data management system. So I don't know who wants to start here, but it's over to you.
Well, I think under this section, I'm going to go ahead and allow Mr. Hubble to address, because I know he is the point on this particular discussion.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Hubble?
Thank you, Ms. Mood. Members of the board. Yeah, we've had a couple really good weeks of activity. At this point, the Comet had selected a third party to review the run cut that RapDev and team had done. That third party review was done by Transportation Management and Design out of San Diego. That they reviewed that run cut, found that this modified run cut to align with kind of the pool of operators currently available. They determined that the run cut was very efficient with limited amount of layovers and an effective use of what's called interlining, where the operators are running different routes as part of their daily work. They reviewed the labor agreement and found that it provided the appropriate percentage of straight runs that are required by RapDev's collective bargaining agreement, and that it was an effective use of part-time operators, that there were actually very few part-time rosters or pieces of work. So most of the work was full-time. We continue to work through now, how do we take this run cut and input it into the existing data management system that the Comet and RapDev uses, the SFT software system. We are frankly, we are struggling with that. I'm setting up a meeting with both the Comet leadership, Leroy and his team, and then Maurice and his team for early next week to talk through several issues related to contract conformance and service delivery. And that is going to be one of the issues on the agenda as to whether, whether the existing software configuration is the best solution going forward, or are there other alternatives to provide the correct and accurate data for both contractual conformance and federal requirements? What are the other available options? But that's all going to be discussed early next week, as I said, with a host of other issues that are related to contract conformance. So that's pretty much the update from the last service committee meeting.
Okay. Did any of you on the committee have questions for Mr. Hubble? All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for that information. And then we'll move to 7D, which is the key personnel process. And I'm listed for this because this has been an agenda item that we've carried over. And it's simply to assess where we are on the committee with the process that we've had in place in our documents that we've been operating on, which calls for when the contractor is replacing someone in a key personnel position. Our process has been that that's referred to the service committee for review, and then we make a recommendation to the board, and then the board and our action can either be to accept the person who's being appointed or to reject. And but the concern has been that how much time that takes. Either it takes a period of time for waiting for committee meetings or board meetings, or if there's an urgency, calling special meetings. And so when we've been in a real crunch to fill for the contractor, RapDev, to fill key performance positions, for a number of those, we've just waived our normal process in order to have feet on the ground. And so this agenda item is really for us to have a chance to make a recommendation to the board in response to their motion on whether we want to propose any ongoing permanent revisions of our process for reviewing key performance positions. Now, Leroy, has anybody on the staff been working on a draft, or are you waiting for direction from the committee on whether we want changes?
We were waiting on direction from the committee to move forward.
Okay. So what are those of you on the committee, both advisory and our voting members, do you have any suggestions that you would want us to pursue in terms of changing the formal process? It really is a matter of not being of being true to what the board has agreed on will be the process, or presenting any changes that we think would improve it. Any thoughts on that?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Fergus.
really, I think we kind of revise on this last employee, but I don't remember how we revised.
Well, we haven't done anything to revise our written formal procedures. All that we've done in the interim is case by case, just waive the process and have the service committee review and then or allow the person to just come on board without the formal process and then inform the board. So, but that's not been, what we're trying to do is to get alignment between what our ongoing process will be with what our written processes tell us we will do.
I'd like to make a motion if you want to take a motion on that.
Yes, yes, that's in order.
That the contractor is able to hire, and we don't, based on the original contract, we don't lose the right to reject. That's written into the original contract, that the qualifications and the person is presented to the service committee. Then the service committee just notify the board of our recommendations. Because if the service committee reject, the board 9 times out of 10 would reject too. But to eliminate a delay, we haven't had problems in the past with the contractor hiring. And then if we had complaints, we could have that employee removed. That's written in.
All right, so really your what I'm hearing is your motion is that we retain the process for the service committee to review the credentials of the person proposed for the position matched against what the requirements are, and either take an action to reject or so the authority at the committee level to reject or to make a recommendation to the board?
I'm thinking the only right we want to keep is the right to reject.
So
They
that's
should be able to hire who they want because they have an upward mobility track that may not fit into what we're reading, but they've developed this employee over a number of years that's never really on paper.
All right, so the only thing that we would be doing different is that they wouldn't need some sort of formal approval. They would just they would only need to respond if the service committee initiated a recommendation to the board to reject a potential appointment for cause. Is that the gist of it?
That's correct. Mm-hmm. Probably.
Okay, do I have a second to Mr. Burgess' motion? I'm not hearing a second.
Can you please repeat the motion, Madam Chair?
Mr. Burgess, would you want to repeat that motion?
I feel like the contractor, I'm saying contractor because it may not be wrapped there. So
Exactly.
we won't have to keep going back to the contractor can hire the employee and we just retain the right to reject, which is really based in the original contract. The 90 days we can reject any employee of the contractor.
All right, so the motion would be that a key personnel appointment by the contractor would be reviewed by the service committee, and the only action the service committee would take would be in a situation where they recommended to the board rejecting the appointment of a particular employee because of the credentials didn't match what's required in the contract. Man, that's a long motion, but is that, did I capture that?
I wouldn't say
Pam,
the
is that?
credentials. I wouldn't say credentials for the simple reason, like I said, we get into
Well-
them contractors upward mobility training. They may have a super employee that they want to develop at a higher level. See, so
Okay.
we'll take their,
So we would, so what you're saying is that any recommendation from the service committee to the board to reject an appointment would be, we'd have to document our reasons for that.
right. See, and basically, with the size of this contract, it's almost rare they'll just give you an employee that can't do the job. We would see that right off at the very next meeting, you know?
Well, yeah, and we certainly, I mean, I think we certainly don't expect an ongoing turnover, but I mean,
Right.
things will arise where they will need to replace people over time. And so we just want to be clear on the process that we have.
Right.
Could I ask, Leroy, would you, and then the staff sort of draw this up, look at the current process and give us and send us a proposed, what that motion would look like if we'll wait and vote on it, but what that motion would look like in terms of the revision in our policies and procedures?
Okay, so you say what's currently,
If, all right, so let me back up a minute. Probably we need to have a vote on the motion, and then we can instruct the staff to prepare a draft revision of the policies and the procedures that reflect this, what the motion indicates, and we can act on that at our next meeting on that draft. Because we don't have really any urgency in this right now. We don't have positions pending.
yes, we can have staff do that based on what your final motion is, looking at
Okay.
what's in the contract now and where we want to go in the future. So we can
All right.
do.
So you'll do the draft for the implementation for our approval at our next meeting if the motion passes.
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion of the motion itself? Are you ready for the vote? I see you shaking your head, Mr. Brennan.
I mean, I feel like I appreciate the, well, first off, I haven't been on comment very long, obviously, so I appreciate all y'all's efforts, Mr. Fergus. I want to learn more about, you know, where this is going. I feel like our lawyers, our counsel should look at employment law and how that affects this, because at the end of the day, I think we just came out of an exercise where we don't want to be making employment decisions via a contract that's in place. I'm not prepared to vote either way today because I just want to learn more. So I will be abstaining from voting. But if this does move forward, I'd like to learn more about it from that, where any action is set in place.
All right, let's see if we can put it this way. Could we, Mr. Fergus, would you be willing to accept a modification of your motion to ask that the staff draw up a modification of our process and procedures to incorporate, to reflect that the process that you described of key personnel being reviewed by the service committee and only rejecting for cause, making a recommendation to reject for cause. But what we're trying to get out of I think what the direction that we're trying to go in, Mr. Brennan, is that we don't tie up the contractor waiting for a long process, getting an approval by the committee and the board, which wouldn't be necessary. I mean, which, as Mr. Fergus points out, may be not necessary. And my only agenda is that we be doing what we've said we do in our written policies, so that we're not violating what the board has said they expect us to do.
Yeah, see, Madam Chair, some of the problems that we've experienced recently with the board holding up the contractors, key employees, or disapproving them before they even come on board. So now, if we go back to the way we used to do it, they would just come in and we would just, if we could reject, because we retain that right of rejection with the original signing of the contracts. See, so we don't be in the weeds because the contractor has to know their employee better than the board reading a resume. 'Cause
Right.
The resume may have nothing to do with the job that this employee is being promoted to.
Right.
It-
Right.
It's just,
And what I don't want us to put the staff in the position of is that we have one thing that our policies say that they are to do. And
Mhm.
then our expectation is that they won't do that. So that's what we're trying to get
I
out of
understand. But
that
yeah,
dilemma.
well, Chairman Moody, I would love to see that stamp of approval from our legal counsel to move that forward. But I understand the gist of what you're saying.
All right, what about this? Would you like to, I'm struggling, as you can tell, about exactly how to proceed with this. But, so what you're saying, Mr. Brunnett, is could we just get a legal opinion on the, any modifications we need to make in our written policies and procedures to reflect
Yes.
a reasonable process for reviewing key personnel positions?
Right, a draft recommendation from staff that has been reviewed by legal counsel to move forward at the next meeting.
How would that be, Mr. Fergus?
yeah, that'd be fine. It can, and that can be done at the next board meeting.
Well, I want
Yeah.
the committee to have seen it, and then, we'll take it to the board.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
All
good
right,
with that, Mr. Fergus and Chairman Moody.
so, Mr. Fergus, would you be willing to withdraw your motion and have us just direct staff to draft a revised process for the, and have legal staff review, and then for us to consider at our next meeting?
Yes, but.
So,
Madam Chair, what we have to be cognizant of, if we say that an employee is good, rather than just the sole act of rejecting, when that employee turns bad, who's responsible?
I
Service
hear you.
committee?
I
see?
hear you. Yes, yes. All right, so, well, maybe not withdraw your motion, but just, let me see if we can restate it.
No, I'll withdraw it and,
Well, I
Right.
mean, it'll be cleaner for the staff, if they have something from us as a motion to
okay.
proceed on, I think. So what the motion would be then is to direct the staff to draft a revision in our policy or procedure, whichever it is, on review of key personnel positions to reflect the discussion that we've had today and have it reviewed by legal staff, and then we'll consider it at our next committee meeting. Does that sound okay? Does that sound okay to you, Mr. Fergus?
Yes, yes.
And for the person seconding the motion, was that okay?
I don't think we had a second.
Oh, I didn't know we hadn't gotten that far.
I don't think
Okay.
we had a second.
All right. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Okay, Mr. Brennan, thanks. So Pam, let's vote on the motion. And we can work on the wording afterwards if we need to, if this is too confusing.
All right, Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Ms. Tracio. I think Ms. Tracio, stepped off the call. Mr. Fergus,
Yes,
Ms. Greenton, Ms. Mood.
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right. Well, I'm sorry for all the confusion around that, but I think we'll sort it out. I know you have an idea about where we need to go. It's just getting the words right to get us there and being consistent. All right. Now, 7E then for RapDev operations. These are the items that we've been reviewing, and we just need to have an update on where we are with this. So the first key performance indicator that we need to have an update on is on-time performance. And this has been, as all of you know, problematic in terms of being sure that we have data that we are measuring from that's we're in agreement between staff and contractors and the data management system that the data that we're looking at is actually all agree is accurate data. And then where do we stand in terms of on-time performance in regards to the contract requirement for 85%? So which of you wants to start on that? We have Mr. Bell and Leroy.
Yes, ma'am. I'll go ahead and start. You know, as we all know, over the last few months, we've been working with strategic mapping to replace Clever Devices. And of course, during the month of February, we had 44 vehicles out of the 92 vehicles in our bus fleet that had received the transition from Clever Devices to strategic mapping. Because of that transition, of course, our percentages for on-time performance are not extremely accurate. And during the course of February, we were at 40% fixed route, where paratransit was at 89.64% for the month of February. Right now, as it stands, strategic mapping installation is at 95%. And we have already started training as well as getting ready to start other form of testing with strategic mapping so that we can be concrete and confident that starting on May 1st, we'll be able to start capturing true data with respect to the on-time performance.
Okay, so we really, so tell me how you arrived at the 40 and 89%, Mr. Bell, in the absence of that being complete.
That was basically through, of course, Clever Devices technology standpoint. Again, some of these vehicles did not have any equipment in them, so we were not able to track the OTPs accurately. So, of course, that's how we ended up coming to the 40%.
Okay. And Leroy, did you have anything to add to that?
I think the biggest thing, and I think we had communicated at previous meeting that we hope to have the project completed by the end of March. But with the challenges that strategic mapping faced from staff members being tested positive for COVID, that threw off the schedule. But what they did do in working with us, they brought extra installers in to try to get us back on track and to get the project finished. So like Mr. Bell said, basically we're at 95%. Hopefully they're looking at wrapping up the project this week by end of day Friday. Our biggest objective here is to test it to make sure that the system is working, and Mr. Bell and his staff is working to make sure that that is accomplished. So if we can get this wrapped up this month, then the first full month of true data will be in May. So hopefully when we have our meeting in June, we will be talking about true data at that meeting, and that's our goal.
Okay, so unfortunate delay, but I hear what you're saying. Any of the committee members have questions or comments for either Mr. Bell or Mr. DeShants?
Madam Chair. I
Yes.
would just like to know what is their projected date that's when the information will be accurate, that we can start dealing with it, whether we need improvement in areas or not. When will the data be accurate?
Well,
That we
what
get
I'm hearing from
data.
that report is that the first full month of data will be data for May, which we would be looking at our June meeting. Is that, did I understand that correct?
Yes, that's our target, yes.
Okay.
June, okay.
We
All
will
right,
be
well-
able to, as we, of course, conduct our tests during the month of April, we'll be able to share some of those results as we go into the May meeting. So
So we'll get a progress report.
provide some progress on that, yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Right, this is that, because that is such a, as you know, such a key performance indicator that I'm so eager for us to know exactly where we stand, because we can't fix problems that we can't pin down. So that's good. All right, how about Mr. Bell and Ms. Gibbons have a report on customer complaints? And Mr. Bell, I don't think we got your usual written summary on these this month. So can we expect that next month?
Oh, I'm surprised by that. I actually submitted it, but that's what I'm reading off of right now. But you will have definitely for the month of March, it's going to be submitted tomorrow.
Okay, and I don't know how it fell through that we didn't, when Pam asked me about attachments, I hadn't seen that. So we'll just have to make sure we don't drop the ball between your submitting that and our getting it in our packet. So would you just report to us then on what that shows?
Definitely, and I'll share this again with Pam so that we can get that to you guys as well.
Okay.
For the month of February, of course, with the challenges of the service delivery on February 8th, we did see an excessive increase in complaints. We ended up seeing over 137 customer complaints, of which 105 of them were categorized as reliability. And so in that particular area, we saw a 77% increase in those complaints. As it stands, those are starting to come down. I don't have a number for you because we're still pulling the data together for the month of March, but we definitely are seeing a decrease in March comparative to what February reported.
Okay. And I'm given our earlier discussion about Mr. Burgess's description of his experience with drivers. I know another one of your measures has to do with the driver, the friendliness and courtesy. So what does your data show on that?
Yes, for the month of February, friendliness was at 13, so it was 8.3% of the total complaints.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Any other questions from other committee members?
Yeah, I have one question.
Yes.
Are the customer service reps back in the building?
Currently, they're not.
They're still working from home. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, between home and Comet Central, we have been scheduling them at Comet Central also, and especially with fares being sold. They've been down there since this past Friday selling passes. So we're also scheduling them through there also.
But Madam Chair, I'm just my suggestion. I'm thinking if kids can go back to school, they can come back to work. But one of my complaints at the last board meeting, I was calling down there to get Miss Gleaton on, and could never get an answer. When I punched the customer service button, that went to avoid stuff. Out of about 4 or 5 selections, nobody answered. Now, it's a big difference between working from home and not working. So I think we need to take a good look at that, because folks aren't getting telephone answered. Ms. Gleaton couldn't get a call transferred when somebody did answer with her. See, so that's something we dropped the ball on, this customer service.
Okay, Mr. DeShamps, could I ask you to follow up with Mr. Fergus on that?
Sure, and I was just going to make a comment. Yes, when that was brought to our attention, we did have our IT that did look at that, and we're in the process of working through that, and hopefully we should have that resolved. We did look at, even when you go in, it gives you different commands or choices, where we found some issues there that we need to clean up. So those things that we are working on and will continue to look at to make sure that all calls get through. Just to give you for an example, we do monitor our customer experience reps daily. Actually, we can see them in real time responding to our customers, communicating with dispatch, And basically, they average right now anywhere from 290 calls a day up to as high as 335. So we do monitor them constantly. Even when they go out for lunch, we can see when they time out for lunch, when they come back in. But also too, even with doing all that, we'll still look at when we feel is a good time to bring them back into the office setting that we have. And also too, if we've given any, different directions quite naturally from the board, then we'll address that also.
Well, I don't know about the rest of the committee, but I find it reassuring that you have that much ability to have real-time oversight and monitoring. Any other questions or comments from the board? And I'm hearing in what you're saying too, Leroy, that you're looking at how user-friendly is the telephone system that we have set up in terms of what people go through in order to get to the place they need to get to. Is that what you said?
Yes, Madam Chair. And like I said, we're working with IT here to, see how we can resolve that. Like I said, to make sure that, every call gets through and gets to the destination.
To make it that we don't drop any, but also that it is as responsive as we can make it be. Yes. Okay. Any other discussion on the complaints? All right, then I'm going to move on to bus stop maintenance. And that's Mr. Bell again and Mr. Harris.
Yes, ma'am. Of course, in our system, we have over 85 shelters. And of course, that's part of the 1,500 plus stops in our system. Of 35 of those 85 shelters receive specific detail and maintenance, pressure washing, you name it, on a daily basis. And all of that is being met at this time. Periodically we'll get reports of cleanliness issues at some of the other stations, which we address with our subcontractor. And then there's times when there's other challenges at some of the other stops. So unless there's something very specific, I don't see any challenges in this particular area that I'm aware of. So if there's something in particular, definitely would love to be able to share and discuss.
Mr. Brennan, you have a question?
Yes, Chairman Mood. I wanted to ask Mr. Bell, what's a good phone number if there are some cleanliness issues at transportation stops that folks can report to?
Right now, that's going to be the complaint line that comes directly through, and then it gets referred back to us for us to be able to address.
What's that number, please?
I don't have it in front of me, sir. I apologize.
Okay, thanks.
803
Mm-hmm.
255
Mm-hmm.
7100. Option 1 or 4.
Great, thanks so much.
Did you get that? And I think right along with that, the trash, when you talk about each one of those being visited daily, that includes the trash pickup?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay.
Right now, there's over 125 trash cans in the entire system. So yes, those get addressed.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions about that item?
Not that item, but that was one of my complaints. When you push button 4, you get another menu. You still don't get a live voice. I mean, you don't get a live voice on anything. And that's my complaint with us going back to fares plus front entrance. We're gonna get some customer complaints just because they're paying again. So we should have where they have ready accessibility to the phone, to the phones being answered. Even though that, we're gonna get those complaints.
All right. And I think
But
that we covered following up on that as we talked about how we're going to try to improve that system, make sure that it's that it doesn't discourage people from giving us feedback or getting the answers to their questions. Those were the specifics. And then, item 8 is the transit operations report, and that really is to cover the other items or anything in addition that you need. I know one of the things we didn't list out separately is the fleet maintenance. So would you speak to that, Mr. Bell, and anything else from the contractor's perspective?
Yes, on the fleet maintenance side, we are reaching our PMs at this point. So there's no challenges with our targeted PMs at 45. We were able to, our miles between roll calls for the month of February was at 26. So although we did not hit the target with respect to that, we are trending upward right now in the month of February, where we were just shy by maybe about 7 roll calls. So there is an improvement in that area with reflect to roll calls.
Okay. And is there anything else from the contractor's perspective that we haven't asked about that you need to let us know?
Well, we have good news that the employee gate was installed. It's been finished. I know that was a project that has been undergoing, and of course our operator barriers was completed as well. So we are good to go with those areas.
Okay. And does that include the trolleys too now? Were those finished?
No, I don't believe so. I think the trolleys are a
yet.
little bit separate on that. They're very unique in comparison, so they were not included.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else? Any other questions from Mr. Bell?
Chairman Mood,
Yes.
I should have asked this earlier, and I don't know if this is for Mr. Bell, but for one of the service committee motions, the Carolina Crossroads project, I see that a consultant has been selected, and that study is being done. Is that correct?
The Carolina Crossroads project's been underway for a while. Yes.
Well, I'm talking about the connectivity of the it says here the work park and ride option.
Yeah, that part of that project was to have 2 park and ride lots. So
Wonderful.
you're asking for an update on that?
Yeah, and I know we're getting here close to our hour. If somebody could just email out a summary of where we're at on that and a timeline,
An
that'd be
update
great.
on the parking ride lots.
Yes, ma'am.
Related
I'd
to the
appreciate
Carolina
that.
Crossroads. All right.
Yes.
You understand? You got that, Pam? Or Mr. or Leroy?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and so we'll just get an update on that. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
And, okay, anything else to come before the committee today? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
So moved, and is there a second?
Second.
And we'll take a voice vote on that. All in favor, aye? Aye.
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 And any opposition? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.